They laughed when I unfolded my walker in the driveway. She's practically furniture, my daughter-in-law smirked. By noon I'd walked into the bank, alone, and revoked every joint signature. By 3, their cards stopped working. By 5, their tone changed. I might walk slow, but I don't move stupid. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence. It lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. They didn't laugh loudly, just quiet little chuckles. The kind people make when they assume you're too old or too tired to catch the joke. Winslow heard it all. The walker clicked as she unfolded it next to the dining table. It was aluminum, with black rubber grips and a basket underneath. It wasn't her first choice, but after that fall near the garden shed last month, her knees weren't what they used to be. Still, her mind was sharp. That part no one could take from her. "Should we add a little bell so we know where you are?" Tracy said, barely glancing up from her plate. Scott let out a soft laugh and kept eating, pretending not to notice the silence that followed. Maya looked up. Her expression didn't change, but her fork paused mid-air. A blink longer than usual. Then she looked down again, quietly chewing. Didn't respond. She kept eating her peas, which were cold and overcooked. The room had gone quiet except for the clinking of silverware. Her walker stood beside her, steady and still, like a witness nobody wanted to address. Later that night, walked past Tracy's office. The door was cracked open. Tracy was on the phone, voice low but clear. "She's basically furniture now," she said with a chuckle, "but worth something. Long as we keep her comfortable." Froze in the hallway, one hand gripping the walker's bar. Her chest tightened, but not from surprise, from clarity. She turned away without a word. At 3 a.m., she sat at her small desk by the bedroom window, the one she'd paid off in 1989. She pulled out the old banking laptop, logged into the joint account, and stared at the screen. $3,400 to a furniture store. Ashford Interiors. She hadn't bought furniture in over 15 years. More charges followed. A salon. A sporting goods store. Car repairs for a vehicle she didn't own. Spa reservations. Nothing had her name on it, but the money had come from her. She printed the records quietly, one page at a time. That Saturday, met her friend Eileen Gray at Elsie's Cafe. They'd worked together at the local credit union back in the day. Eileen looked the same. Blunt haircut, red lipstick slightly faded, sharp as ever. "They're spending your money like you've already died," Eileen said, flipping through the printed pages. Stirred her coffee. "They think I won't notice. They think you won't do anything," Eileen said flatly. "You're not protected. Those joint accounts, they could empty them tomorrow, and it'd still be legal." Nodded slowly. "I know. You've got to act before they decide where you'll end up next." Said nothing. Outside, the wind shook the awning. The cafe bell rang behind her as a teenager came in looking for a muffin. "I always figured they'd do right by me," she said quietly. Eileen raised an eyebrow. "Then they figured wrong." When got home, the house was quiet. Scott was snoring on the couch, with the television flickering across his face. Tracy was gone, probably out spending something else in Dot's name. Stood at the edge of the hallway, eyes resting on the narrow desk, where Tracy kept her files. There was a stack of envelopes, one addressed to her in Tracy's handwriting. She didn't open it. In her room, she sat at the edge of the bed. The walker stood beside her. She stared at it, then slowly folded it shut. The hinges creaked, her knees ached, but she stood without it. She looked at herself in the mirror. Old? Maybe. Weak? Not yet. She spoke aloud to the stillness in the room. "I'm going to the bank first thing Monday." Her voice didn't waver. And somewhere in the quiet, something shifted. The bank smelled like toner and wintergreen gum. Stood in line with both hands resting on her walker, her knuckles pale, her spine held straight like a ruler pressed between her shoulders. There were 4 people ahead of her, but she wasn't in a hurry. Not today. When her turn came, the teller, early 20s, polite too cheerful, greeted her like she might forget why she'd come. "How can I help you today, ma'am?" Dot looked him square in the eye. "I'd like a full printout of every transaction on my joint accounts. 3 months, no summaries, itemized." The teller blinked. "All of them, every last line," she said. He nodded and disappeared into the back. Dot didn't sit while she waited. She stared at the framed poster beside the window. A smiling couple in their 50s sailing into retirement. "Secure your future," it said in bold print. She didn't feel amused. When he returned, she took the stack without a word and carried it to the corner table near the window. Her fingers moved with muscle memory as she flipped through the pages, skimming each charge with the precision of someone who used to audit accounts by hand. The numbers told a story. A quiet one, a disrespectful one. $148.20. Sheer Radiance Hair Spa. $439.99. Jenkins Auto Finance. $3,400. Ashford Interiors. $220.54. High Point Outdoor Supply. A charge every Friday for $63. Stream Time Plus. Dot didn't own a streaming device. She kept scanning. Nail salons. Fishing licenses. A payment to a real estate agency. None of it hers. All of it came from accounts with her name on them. She returned to the teller. "Can I close these accounts without notifying the co-owners?" The teller hesitated. "Yes, ma'am. As long as you're listed on the account, you can close or withdraw without their consent." Dot nodded once. Good to know. She didn't close them. Not yet. That afternoon she met Eileen at their usual table near the window at Elsie's Cafe. Eileen wore a wool coat with a velvet collar. Her lipstick faded but applied with care. Dot laid the printouts between them. "They're spending me out of my own house," she said. Eileen scanned the pages, jaw tightening. "They're using those joint accounts like their own personal credit line." Dot stirred her tea slowly. "I asked if I could shut them down. The teller said yes." Dot. "Listen to me." Eileen leaned in. "Joint accounts are like open doors. If they want, they can clean you out in 20 minutes and it's still legal. You need your own name on your own wall." Dot didn't blink. "Then I'm building one." By 4:30 she was back at the bank. This time she met with a woman in a glass office whose tone shifted when Dot used words like asset separation and pension redirection. Within the hour, Dot had a brand new checking account, titled solely under her full name, Dorothy Eliza Winslow. She transferred her Social Security, then her pension, changed the mailing address, declined paper statements. "Would you like to notify the joint account holders?" the woman asked. "No," Dot said evenly. "Let them notice on their own." That evening, back home, Maya knocked softly on her bedroom door. "I made you something," she said, holding a small package wrapped in leftover holiday tissue. Inside was a sleek digital notebook with a hand-coded interface. "I set it up to track your spending and flag anything you didn't do. I built in security questions and a voice lock passcode." Dot raised an eyebrow. "You coded this?" Maya nodded. "They think you're not watching. But I know you are." Dot didn't say thank you. She simply opened the first screen. Clean, efficient, private. Later that night, while Scott watched TV and Tracy paced through a phone call in the kitchen, Dot walked down the hallway and paused by Tracy's desk. The drawer wasn't locked. She only meant to grab the gas bill. Instead, she found a blue folder pushed to the back, labeled in careful Sharpie handwriting, Plan B, Elder Transition Budget. Dot opened it. The first line read, "Target move-out date July 14th. Sell silver appraised jewelry. Investigate early POA filing." She stood there a long moment, her hand gripping the edge of the drawer. The gas bill could wait. The folder was meant to stay buried, pushed beneath tax files, disguised among power bills and neighborhood flyers. But Dot had opened that drawer looking for a gas statement, and instead found a blueprint for her own erasure. She carried the folder back to her bedroom like it was radioactive. Sitting on the edge of her bed, Dot flipped it open slowly. The air felt heavier as she read. Projected move-out date July 14th. Facility options Birch Pine Sunset Oaks. Medicaid eligible in 6-8 months. Refinance house post-transition 90-day cooling period. Sell silver appraised jewelry. Confirm legal pathway if cognitive decline is documented. Each line hit harder than the last. Her name wasn't even in the margin. Just Dot. Like she was already gone and her memory was being accounted for in spreadsheet rows. Dot's hands didn't shake. They stilled. There was no anger. Not yet. Only clarity. She reached for her old printer, the dusty one tucked under the sewing table, and printed every page. The whirring sound was slow, mechanical, like the machine was waking up just in time. She slid the papers into a new folder, then called Maya. Maya appeared at the door within seconds, still in her hoodie, earbuds tucked into the collar. "Can you help me scan something?" Dot asked, holding up the papers. "And encrypt it." Maya blinked. "Encrypt." Dot nodded. "Lock it up so no one else can open it unless they know the right words." A smile tugged at Maya's mouth, but she didn't joke. "Yeah, I can do that." They worked side by side at the small desk. The hum of the scanner, Maya's quick keystrokes, the soft beeps from the flash drive. It felt like assembling armor, not flashy but precise. Maya labeled the file Dev Winslow, Personal Protection Archive, then wrapped the drive in a clean handkerchief and handed it over like it was a pocket-sized weapon. "Don't lose it," she said. "There's a password hint built in, but even I won't be able to open it without your say-so." Dot smiled faintly. Good. Later that night, when the house had quieted, Scott asleep in front of a muted basketball game, Tracy scrolling through her phone in bed. Dot sat in her room with a yellow notepad. She didn't write a list. She wrote a name. Reed Ackers. Back in the late 80s, Reed had been a high school intern at the credit union where Dot worked. Back then, he'd fumbled with filing systems and called her Mrs. Winslow even after she told him not to. But he had good instincts. She'd written his first college recommendation letter. He was a lawyer now. Estate and trust work. Dot had kept tabs. Small-town names didn't drift far. The next morning she called his office. "This is Dorothy Winslow," she said. "You may not remember me, but I remember you." Reed didn't hesitate. "Of course I remember. You got me my first scholarship. What can I do for you?" "Everything legal I ever trusted someone else to manage," she said. "I'm taking back." They met the following afternoon in a small office off Main Street. Reed had aged, more forehead, deeper lines around his eyes, but the way he listened hadn't changed. He didn't interrupt. He didn't condescend. He just took notes. Dot laid it all out. The joint accounts, the transfer, the new account, the folder she found, the plan she was never meant to see. Reed leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. "They're laying the groundwork, but you're still ahead of them." He helped her draft a new living trust, outlined protections, set up a secondary power of attorney, not for Tracy or Scott, but for Maya, quietly, legally, completely. Dot returned home with a file of originals. That evening she installed a fireproof lockbox in her closet, beneath the spare quilts and holiday ornaments. It clicked shut like a vault. Later she made tea and sat by the window as dusk settled over the backyard. The sky was bruising purple. The maple tree rattled in the wind like it wanted to warn her of something. A knock came at the bedroom door. Tracy's voice followed. Too sweet, too bright. "There's a letter here from an attorney. Something about a filing." Dot didn't answer. Not yet. The wind was sharp that morning. It pulled at the hem of Dot's coat as she crossed the courthouse-adjacent sidewalk, her cane tapping in quiet rhythm against the cracked concrete. She didn't take the elevator. The stairs creaked beneath her weight, but she climbed each one with steady resolve. Reed Ackers was waiting inside. His office was small, warm, lined with dusty legal volumes, and a framed poster of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The scent of brewed coffee mingled with the faint musk of old paper. He rose when she entered. "Dorothy Winslow," he said, smiling. "You look taller than I remember." Dot eased into the chair across from him and rested her cane against the desk. I stood straighter when I stopped asking for permission. Reed chuckled and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Let's get you protected. They worked slowly, page by page. Dot explained what she knew. The joint accounts, the hidden folder, the household that treated her like a slow leak in their financial plan. She laid out her life like an estate map, clean and direct. When Reed asked, "Are you ready to name beneficiaries and successors?" she didn't hesitate. "Maya," she said. "No one else." They rewrote the will. No more equal splits. No ambiguity. Reed had Maya listed as the sole successor trustee and sole inheritor of the property. They reclaimed title to the house and transferred it into a living trust under Dot's name, with automatic succession to Maya. "That'll make any refinancing impossible without your notarized consent," Reed explained. "They try anything now. It triggers legal alerts." Dot said, eyes steady. He reached the final packet. Power of attorney. She looked down at her folded hands. "Yes, Maya. For medical, legal, and financial." Reed glanced up. "Are you sure she's ready?" "She's the only one who hasn't lied to me," Dot replied. "That's all the readiness I need." The documents were signed, witnessed, copied, originals handed to Dot, sealed in thick manila envelopes with bright red stamps, executed, retained for records. When Dot returned home, she moved differently, slower, but not out of weakness. She was calculating now, eyes sharp, listening more, saying less. That evening she found Tracy rifling through the kitchen drawer, where Dot usually kept her mail. Her tone was too casual. "Hey," Tracy said, holding up a bank envelope. "New account. You switched something." Dot raised an eyebrow. "I thought you didn't open other people's mail." Tracy smiled thinly. "Didn't open it. Just curious." Dot didn't answer. She just turned and walked to her room. That night, she called Maya in and handed her a list of new passwords. Banking, utilities, even her grocery store loyalty card. Maya copied them onto her encrypted notebook, nodding. "We need to make sure no one's snooping," Dot said. Maya returned later with a small package. A discreet black cube the size of a mint tin. "Motion-triggered camera," she said. "Records directly to the flash drive. I already tested it. Sound too." They installed it in the vent above Dot's desk, out of sight, watching quietly. By the end of the week, Dot had removed Tracy's debit privileges. She didn't call or explain, just logged in, clicked a few boxes, and made it final. The next morning, Tracy's phone buzzed in the kitchen. She picked it up, squinting. "That's weird. My card just declined at the gas station. Said I don't have access to the account." Dot poured herself a cup of tea. "That would be correct." "What does that mean?" "It means your joint privileges," Dot said evenly, "have been revoked." Tracy stared at her. "You can't do that." "I already did." Before Tracy could respond, the front door slammed. Scott stormed in from the driveway, face red, voice already raised. "What the hell is going on, Mom?" he shouted. Dot didn't flinch. She set down her teacup, turned to face him fully, and met his eyes like she had when he was 5 years old and had broken her radio on purpose. She didn't speak. Not yet. The air was crisp and mean. The morning Dot Winslow left the house without telling anyone. She wore her deep navy coat, the one with silver buttons that Maya once said made her look presidential. Her cane tapped on the pavement like punctuation. Every step down the sidewalk was deliberate, unhurried, absolute. She hadn't used the walker in 3 days. No one noticed. The bank's lobby was half full, retirees in fleece jackets, a mother with a stroller, a man arguing softly with a teller over overdraft fees. Dot waited patiently until the glass door clicked open and the manager, a young woman named Rachel, who always addressed her as Miss Winslow, waved her in. Inside the office, Rachel offered her coffee. Dot declined. She opened her purse and pulled out a folded list of figures. "I'd like to withdraw these amounts from all joint accounts in my name, totaling $24,117. Rachel blinked. "You want that in cash?" Dot shook her head. "Cashier's checks. 5 of them. Specific amounts." She slid the list across the desk. The room was quiet but humming, the low buzz of printers, the air vents clicking on. Rachel looked over the numbers. Then at Dot. Are you sure you don't want to notify the other account holders? Dot's reply came without hesitation. No, let them bounce. Rachel nodded once and rose to process the request. When she returned 15 minutes later, she placed 5 sealed envelopes on the desk, each check marked with Dot's name in crisp ink. Dot inspected them with the precision of a woman who used to audit businesses by hand. She slipped them into her lockable purse, fastened it tight, and stood. Anything else I can do for you today? Rachel asked. Dot paused. Yes. Remove online access for all joint account holders. Effective immediately. The woman blinked. Of course. By noon the trouble began. Scott's phone buzzed in the garage. He barely glanced at it until the second ping came, this time from his bank app. His brow furrowed. Tracy, he shouted. Did you move the mortgage money? She came out of the kitchen, holding a spoon still dripping with tomato sauce. What are you talking about? He held out the phone. Mortgage auto pay failed. It says insufficient funds. Tracy wiped her hands, grabbed the phone, and squinted at the screen. Her stomach dropped. She bolted to her laptop in the dining room. The screen took longer than usual to load. Her fingers typed fast. Desperate, her password didn't work. A second attempt, then a third. Account access restricted. Please contact your financial institution. Tracy froze, then slammed the laptop shut. She did something. Upstairs, Dot was already 5 steps ahead. She'd installed new locks on her bedroom door, sturdy ones with a keypad. Maya helped screw in the motion sensor near the baseboard, angled perfectly at desk height. The camera in the vent had been upgraded too, now with night vision. Reed filed the restraining notice that afternoon, a full motion to block any unauthorized financial or legal actions against Dot Winslow. It included digital evidence, signature logs, and a notarized timeline of abuse indicators. The document was airtight. While they filed it, Dot sat at Reed's desk, flipping through a Accoun catalog. She ignored the standard options and chose one under the custom tab. Dark cherry wood, rubber tip, engraved handle. She typed the engraving message herself. Not yours, it would arrive by the end of the week. That evening, Tracy paced the hallway outside Dot's locked bedroom. You're being unreasonable, she said through the door. This affects all of us. Dot sat at her desk, sipping tea. She didn't reply. The camera recorded everything. The next morning, Dot's phone rang just after 8 a.m. Unknown number. She answered. Hi, this is Officer Kenny Tran with Boise PD. Hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, officer. I've had a wellness report come across my desk. Someone filed a concern about your mental state. Nothing formal yet, just checking in. Dot looked out the window. The maple tree outside was turning amber. She smiled. Wellness, huh? She said calmly. You're welcome to stop by, officer. I'll have hot tea waiting. The knock at the door was firm. Not urgent, not hesitant, just confident enough to say it wasn't a neighbor. Dot had been expecting it. She smoothed the front of her cardigan and glanced at the tea kettle, already whistling low on the stove. 2 cups waited on the counter. She opened the door before he could knock again. The man standing there was tall, mid-30s maybe, with dark hair trimmed short and a badge clipped neatly to his belt. No sunglasses, no posture of intimidation. He held his hat under one arm and offered a small smile. Miss Winslow, Officer Kenny Tran, Boise PD. Mind if I come in for a moment? Dot stepped aside. Only if you take your tea with honey. I already poured. He followed her into the kitchen, his boots quiet on the tile. The room smelled of cinnamon and lemon polish. Dot had made sure of it. Got a call yesterday. Tran began as he took a seat at the small round table. Report said you may be confused lately. Erratic. Possibly unfit to make financial decisions. Dot raised an eyebrow, sliding a folder across the table like a royal flush in a poker game. Let me save you some time, she said. That's the ledger. Every account. Every transfer. Original statements and backup copies. Labeled, dated, and logged by hand. Tran opened the folder slowly. His eyes scanned the pages, one after another. Tight, precise columns. Deposits. Withdrawals. Legal copies of the trust, the will, the property title. All in order. Dot poured tea for both of them. I was a bookkeeper for 30 years, she added. Didn't need software. Didn't need permission. Tran looked up, almost smiling. Well, whoever filed the report must have missed that memo. His gaze drifted to the walker folded neatly beside the fridge, untouched. I'm guessing you're more dangerous now than ever, he said. Dot didn't smile. Only to people who thought I wouldn't fight back. Just then Maya entered the kitchen, barefoot and still in her hoodie. She looked between them, then to Dot. Is this about the wellness call? Tran nodded gently. Just routine. Without a word, Maya crossed to the counter, picked up a USB stick, and held it out to him. Camera footage. Last Thursday. Shows Tracy going through Grandma's desk drawers. She says, quote, "We'll get her in a home soon whether she likes it or not." Tran accepted the drive without flinching. Appreciate it. Dot refilled his cup before he could object. Anything else I can give you? She asked. Actually, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded letter. Your attorney sent this over this morning. Reed Ackers, correct? Dot took it, eyes scanning the heading. It was a formal summary: financial restructuring, revocation of joint account access, confirmation of POA assigned to Maya, dates, signatures, clear legal authority. Tran sipped his tea. You've built yourself a very clean wall, Miss Winslow. That's rare. Paperwork is the armor they don't see coming. He set the cup down and stood. I'm opening an informal elder intimidation inquiry, he said, slipping the USB into an evidence pouch. This doesn't go public yet, but it means there's a record now. If anything escalates, calls, pressure, threats, you call me directly. Dot followed him to the door. Do I look like someone unstable to you, officer? He smiled. You look like the most dangerous woman on this street. The door closed gently behind him. Dot turned back toward the living room, the silence now warm instead of sharp. Maya had already returned to her homework. The kettle had cooled. The house was still. That night, after dinner, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. Dot recognized the return address. A downtown law office she didn't know personally. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter on heavy paper, thick with veiled threat and legalese. Undue influence by the granddaughter. Potential defamation and mischaracterization of family. This letter serves as notice to cease and desist all accusations and withholding of shared assets. Dot folded it once, cleanly, then she smiled. Slow and thin. They're scared, she whispered. The envelope sat on the dining table like a challenge no one wanted to be the first to touch. Maya peeled it open carefully, eyes scanning the letterhead, then dropping to the body of text. Dot watched her granddaughter's expression shift, not to fear or confusion, but to that sharp, calculating focus she got when she was troubleshooting code. They really think this sounds official, Maya muttered, flipping to the second page. Dot didn't move. Tell me. Maya read aloud. Defamation, undue influence, claims of intentional emotional coercion by a third party, meaning me. She looked up. They're saying you're not thinking for yourself. Dot's hands rested on the armrests of her chair, completely still. And is any of it enforceable? Not one word. It's intimidation dressed as legalese. Maya folded the letter crisply. They want to rattle you. Dot's mouth twitched. Then they'll need better tools. That afternoon, Reed Ackers didn't even flinch when Dot slid the letter across his desk. He skimmed the first paragraph and shook his head. This isn't a threat, he said. It's a bluff. They're testing boundaries. Dot said. Let's give them one they can't cross. Reed drafted a formal cease and desist, citing documented financial interference, recorded attempts to manipulate housing arrangements, and now, false claims of mental incapacity. By the time Dot left his office, the letter was already queued to be sent via certified mail, fax, and email. They won't touch her again without gloves, Reed assured. When Dot got home, she unplugged the landline in the kitchen. For decades, that phone had rung with birthday calls, work reminders, and her late husband's voice on cold evenings. Now it rang with voicemails labeled concerned, but laced with pressure. She took the phone off the wall and slid it into the hallway donation bin. It thunked against old books and forgotten mugs. From now on, she said to no one, they can speak to my attorney. That night, Dot logged into her pension portal, a website she hadn't touched since retirement. Her login still worked. She navigated slowly, carefully, each click echoing like a small declaration. Under account settings, she updated her banking information, removed the joint routing number, entered the new account. She clicked confirm, and let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. On Saturday, Eileen arrived with a tin of lemon bars and a box labeled Old Crap. Inside were file folders, photo envelopes, and pension slips going back to 1982. Time to do a sweep, Eileen said, opening the back door to let in the breeze. We'll burn what's useless, lock up what's gold. The backyard smelled like fresh-cut grass and sun-warmed soil. They set up on the patio table, stacking, sorting and feeding a small fire pit with anything that had outlived its purpose. Dot held one envelope up to the sun. Inside were medical statements from a surgery she barely remembered. I kept everything, she said. Eileen passed her a lighter. That's why you're still standing. The sun was just beginning to dip when the banging started. 3 quick thuds, then louder ones. Dot paused at the file cabinet, hand hovering over the drawer. She turned slowly. Scott's voice thundered from the front porch. Mom, open the door. We need to talk about what you've done. Dot didn't move. Not a flinch. Not a flicker. The pounding came again. You can't just shut people out like this. You're being unreasonable. She walked to the kitchen, phone in hand, cane tapping gently. Maya appeared at the top of the stairs, face tight with fear. Dot raised one calming hand and spoke into the phone with steady, level authority. Yes, I need to report a disturbance, she said. There's a man outside who thinks I still belong to him. Scott was still banging on the storm door when the patrol car rolled up. The headlights splashed across the porch, and for one brief second he backed off, his hand dropping, his voice cutting out mid-shout like someone had unplugged him. Then he stepped down onto the walkway, arms wide in mock surrender. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. Dot stood just inside, hand on the knob, calm as cold iron. She watched from the foyer window as Officer Tran stepped out of the cruiser, one hand resting casually on his belt, the other holding a small notebook. No sirens, no show, just quiet authority. Evening, Tran said as he approached. You Scott Winslow. Scott lowered his arms but kept the indignation sharp in his voice. My mother called the cops on me for knocking on her door. Tran didn't answer that. Instead, he turned toward the house. Miss Winslow, you still inside? Dot opened the door just enough for her voice to carry. I'm here, she said, and I'd like to file a report. Inside, the living room had the warmth of quiet rebellion. A candle flickered on the mantel. The sound of Maya's keyboard tapping faintly from the upstairs landing was steady, rhythmic. Dot sat on the couch with her cane upright beside her like a gavel. Scott stood awkwardly off to the side, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, still pacing like he couldn't believe he'd lost control of the narrative. Tran opened his notebook and took a seat across from Dot. Let's go back a bit, he said. Tell me what's been happening. Dot spoke clearly, without pause. She laid it out like a ledger, the unexplained withdrawals from the joint accounts, the salon and auto charges, the forged login attempts, the letter from Tracy's lawyer accusing Maya of undue influence, and the wellness call that tried to cast her as unstable. Tran didn't interrupt. He just took it all down. And this morning? He asked. Dot glanced at the clock. Scott showed up uninvited. He yelled, banged on the door, refused to leave. Tran turned to Scott. That accurate? I wasn't yelling, Scott said quickly. I was upset. That's my mother. This is a family issue. Maya appeared at the base of the stairs, holding a slim flash drive between 2 fingers. I think this will clear things up. Tran took it and turned it over in his hand. What's on it? Footage from our motion-activated camera in the hallway. Audio and video, she said. Time stamped. Scott scoffed. You're spying now? Dot didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Tran. I installed it after Tracy went through my desk. She told someone I'd be in a home soon. Tran tucked the flash drive into his pocket and stood. Mr. Winslow, here's the deal. Your mother is not a ward. She's not legally is not a ward. She's not legally or medically dependent on you, and she has every right to secure her finances and property. You can't be serious. Tran raised his voice, just once. She is not yours to manage. Scott stiffened, his hands clenched, but he didn't say another word. Tran turned to Dot. Would you like him to leave for the night? Yes, she said softly. As Scott walked out the front door, Tran followed. He didn't cuff him, didn't escalate, just watched until Scott pulled away in his truck, tires squealing once before silence returned to the street. The house felt different after that. Lighter, like something had finally snapped loose from the air. Dot returned to her desk and opened a fresh document on her computer. The title came easily, like it had been sitting just under the surface, waiting to rise. The price of undermining the elderly. She began typing. Later that evening her cell buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then something made her answer. Hello? Miss Winslow. This is Danielle from Idaho State Bank Security Office. We're calling to verify a new joint account application submitted under your name today. Listed co-owner, Tracy Winslow. Dot's jaw tightened. Her voice remained calm. I didn't submit anything. There was a pause. Then we thought so. The bank manager's face told Dot everything before a single word was spoken. A clipboard rested on the desk between them, the top sheet neatly printed with bold headers and digital tracking numbers. Behind it, the monitor flickered with login attempts and timestamps. The air inside the private office smelled faintly of toner and something burnt, like the wires beneath the surface had overheated from activity. I assume this isn't your digital signature? The manager asked. Dot leaned forward and adjusted her glasses. There it was, plain as day. Dot Winslow, 1950 in the signature field of a joint account application submitted 2 days ago. Tracy Winslow was listed as co-owner. A mobile IP address from their shared Wi-Fi had logged the request. I don't sign anything with a birth date, Dot said evenly. Especially not one someone else knows. The manager pursed her lips and nodded. She must have guessed you wouldn't notice the new app alert, she offered. I used two-factor authentication. It pinged me. Dot's voice was calm, but her hands curled tightly around the purse on her lap. That's why I'm here. Reed Ackers walked into the branch 20 minutes later, coat still half-buttoned, briefcase swinging at his side. He greeted Dot with a nod and shook the manager's hand firmly. Print everything, he said. Submission time, IP logs, e-signature trail. Then start your internal audit, and flag the account as potential identity fraud. The manager hesitated. She's family. She's a perpetrator, Reed said coldly. Start the investigation. Back in his office that afternoon, Dot sat across from Reed as he drafted the formal fraud complaint. Her tea sat untouched on the desk beside her. She did it thinking I'd never follow the trail, Dot said. She didn't expect you to build a digital wall, Reed replied, typing without pause. Dot reached into her bag and handed him a folded sheet. A list of every account, health benefits, retirement disbursements, insurance, utility portals that had once been accessible through shared credentials. She'd updated them all, one by one. I want every last trace scrubbed, she said. Formally revoked. Nothing left she can use. Reed nodded and added a clause to the complaint. Immediate and total revocation of all co-beneficiary and co-access claims, digital and physical. Later that evening, Officer Tran stood in Dot's kitchen, arms crossed, watching the signature file scroll across Maya's laptop screen. She'd extracted the metadata, login location, session duration, even the browser fingerprint. Tran let out a low whistle. Fake digital signature. Stolen IP access. This just crossed the line, he said. This isn't domestic interference anymore. It's felony territory. Dot didn't react. She was staring at the screen, not with shock, but with clarity. She used my house like a checkbook, she murmured. Tran looked up. We'll loop in detective services. This is officially criminal now. At the bank, Tracy's name was quietly flagged in their fraud prevention system. A red digital alert linked to any account under Dot's umbrella. No notifications were sent, just quiet restriction. Dot never asked for punishment. She asked for distance, for security, for peace, but the walls were closing now. Not on her, but on the people who once laughed at her walker. The sun had dipped below the horizon when Dot's phone rang. She was in the middle of reorganizing the lockbox, refiling notarized documents, the engraved cane propped beside her desk. It was Reed. Are you sitting down? He asked. Dot paused. Go on. We just ran the property audit you asked for. He took a breath. There's a secondary mortgage application, filed last week. Tracy's name is on it. She used your house as collateral. Dot felt it before she processed it. The silence collapsing around her like a vacuum. She tried to take my home. She did more than try. The paperwork was forged, but the process made it halfway through underwriting. If you hadn't flagged the fraud today, it might have gone through. Dot pressed a hand to her chest. Not fear, fury, cold and sharp and rising. This is no longer about money, she said quietly. This is theft of my life. Dot's fingers moved slowly across the trust documents, smoothing each page flat, as if by touch alone she could reinforce what was already law. 100% title ownership. Dorothy Eliza Winslow. No co-signers, no joint holders, no alternate beneficiaries. Not anymore. Outside, the autumn wind tugged at the shutters. Inside, the house felt still, but no longer vulnerable. For the first time in months, Dot wasn't playing defense. She was building a fortress. Maya sat beside her with a laptop open and a fresh password list in her lap. We're rotating everything again, she said. Bank, insurance, cloud backups, and I added 2FA on your deed documents and trust login. They won't even get past the welcome screen without retinal scans at this point. Dot gave a small nod of approval. Good. Reed had already submitted the deed protection lock to the Ada County Recorder's office that morning. Once it cleared, no title changes or refinancing applications could move forward without notarized, in-person authorization. It was the legal version of slamming and double-latching a door. They wanted it as an asset, Dot murmured. But this house is a memory, a legacy. Maya glanced at her. It's yours. They don't get to inherit what they tried to steal. That afternoon, Dot updated her will at Reed's office. She sat across from him beneath a painting of a mountain lake and signed the revised estate documents with a steady hand. The house would go to Maya, with a 15-year no-sell clause, not because Dot didn't trust her, but because she wanted the home to mean something, not a quick inheritance, a foundation. I want her to live in it, grow something in the backyard, know what roots feel like, she said. Reed nodded as he sealed the folder. You're making them earn what they thought they were owed. No, Dot replied. I'm making sure they get nothing. Later that week, Eileen dropped by with a fresh binder in hand and an idea burning in her eyes. I was thinking, she said, pulling out a packet of notes, you've been through hell, but most people wouldn't even know how to begin fighting back. You should write a guide. Dot blinked. A guide. Financial safety for seniors, digital protection, legal tools, all of it. You've already lived it. Turn it into a shield someone else can use. Dot stared at the blank page Eileen had slipped between them. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Instead, she wrote a title at the top of the first page, Guarding What They Think You've Forgotten. On a gray Thursday afternoon, Maya walked across the high school parking lot toward Dot's car, backpack slung low, hoodie pulled up against the wind. She spotted Tracy before Tracy spotted her. Tracy stood near the edge of the school lawn, arms crossed, lips pressed thin. Maya, she called, stepping forward. We need to talk. Maya didn't stop walking. She didn't flinch, but she kept her voice even. You're not allowed here. Tracy's expression hardened. You think she's okay? You think you're doing her any favors by playing power games. Before Maya could answer, Mrs. Kessler, the assistant principal, stepped between them, clipboard in hand. Miss Winslow, this is school property. You're not on the contact list, and you're not cleared to approach students. Please leave. Tracy gave Maya one last glare, then turned and walked off. Her boots crunched on gravel as she disappeared behind the row of parked cars. Maya exhaled only once she was inside Dot's car. Her hands were steady on the wheel as she pulled out. She's scared, she said to no one. Dot didn't reply. She didn't have to. 3 days later, a cream-colored envelope appeared in Dot's mailbox. No return address, just a company logo. Real estate. She slid it open at the kitchen table. The air smelled like toast and lilacs from the vase Maya had picked. The letter inside was short and printed on thick cardstock. Thank you for choosing to list your property with Boise Heritage Realty. Your intake form has been processed. A licensed agent will follow up shortly regarding showings. Dot's breath left her in one clean cold exhale. She stood, walked calmly to the window, and looked out across the yard. Her yard. Leaves scattered like confetti across the lawn. They're still coming, she whispered. Dot didn't waste a second. The minute the letter hit the trash can, she was already dialing the number listed on the realtor's letterhead. Her tea went cold on the counter. The house around her fell into a hush, like it understood this moment would be remembered. A pleasant, chirpy voice picked up on the third ring. Boise Heritage Realty. This is Shelley speaking. How can I? This is Dorothy Winslow. Dot interrupted, her tone cool and level. I just received a letter confirming my home was listed for sale through your agency. That is incorrect. There was a pause. Then the change in Shelley's voice, from polished to rattled, was almost immediate. Miss Winslow. Oh my God, one moment. The call placed her on hold for nearly 2 full minutes. Dot didn't fidget. She didn't pace. She stared out the front window, watching the breeze rustle the leaves like warning whispers. A man picked up. Miss Winslow. I'm Tom Evers, principal broker here. I sincerely apologize for the confusion. According to our file, the listing came from a Tracy Winslow and Scott Winslow. They claim to be co-owners of record. They are not, Dot said, enunciating each word. I am the sole legal owner. The property is locked in a living trust. That application was false. Tom cleared his throat. They provided digital signatures. Dot Winslow, 1950, and an email under your name. All the paperwork looked convincing, I'm sure. Dot finished. Would you please forward those emails to my attorney Reed Ackers? Yes. Absolutely. Immediately. Also, she added, you'll be withdrawing the listing, effective now. Yes, ma'am. Reed received the forwarded emails within the hour. His reply was swift and clipped: forgery, false representation, wire fraud, identity theft. I'll file the additions to the civil suit and forward to Officer Tran for felony review. Dot barely blinked. What's the next step? We don't wait anymore, Reed said. We go on offense. By mid-afternoon, Dot was backing out of her driveway, behind the wheel of her own car. She hadn't driven in weeks. But this was worth the effort. The courthouse downtown was quieter than usual. The air smelled of paper and pine sol. Her footsteps echoed in the tiled hallway as she walked. No walker, no cane, clutching a folder thick with evidence, bank statements, property deeds, and every email the realtor had forwarded. The clerk at the front desk barely glanced up. Filing something, Dot set the folder down in front of her. I'm filing for war. That evening, Maya knocked softly on Dot's office door. She didn't wait to be invited in. I did something, she said, holding up her phone. Don't be mad. Dot looked over her glasses. Maya handed over a printed page fresh from the school paper's website. The title stretched across the top in bold serif font. When Family Fails the Test, the Quiet Epidemic of Elder Exploitation. Below it a byline. Anonymous. I didn't name names. Maya said, but I laid out what happened, what's still happening. I wanted people to know how easy it is, how invisible it can be. Dot folded the page once, carefully. She didn't smile, but her eyes warmed. Good, she said. Now it's on record. Just after dinner, Officer Tran called. Investigation's now fully active, he said. Detective Services is in. Charges pending on Tracy. Maybe Scott. We're moving. Dot was silent for a long moment. Then took them long enough. Tran chuckled. Some trees grow slow, ma'am. Doesn't mean their roots aren't deep. At 9:41 p.m., Dot's phone vibrated. One message. From an unfamiliar number. Scott Winslow. We'll fight this and we'll win. You're not as sharp as you think. Dot stared at the screen, her face unreadable. Then she tapped reply. Wrong again, son. I'm sharper than I've ever been, and I'm not alone this time. She didn't hit send. She didn't have to. She locked the screen and turned out the light. The courtroom was cool and still, like the inside of a church before a funeral. Dot Winslow walked in wearing her Sunday coat, navy wool with a silver pin at the collar. Her cane tapped softly with each step, not as a crutch, but as punctuation. Maya walked beside her, not offering help, just presence. Eileen sat already in the gallery, back straight, lips pressed tight. At the other end of the room, Tracy smoothed the front of her blazer and leaned over to whisper something to her attorney. Scott kept his head down. His tie was crooked. He looked like someone who'd just realized the GPS had lied, and there was no off-ramp coming. Dot didn't look at either of them. The bailiff called the court to order. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with hair pulled back in a perfect twist, nodded once and opened the folder in front of her. We're here on Winslow Vubber Winslow. Docket 44,389C, she said. Allegations include attempted fraud, financial elder abuse, false representation, and misuse of authority related to medical and legal power of attorney. She looked over her glasses at Tracy and Scott. You may proceed. Tracy stood first. Her voice started with polished concern, but the cracks showed early. This has all been a misunderstanding, she said. We were simply trying to help my mother-in-law. She's been confused, at times. Her memory's not what it was. We were managing things to keep her safe. Dot sat still, not blinking, not moving. And the bank accounts? The judge asked. Tracy smiled, strained. We shared access to help with bills, groceries. She never raised any objections. And the forged signature on the real estate listing. I didn't forge anything, Tracy said quickly. That was all just an error in the system. From the gallery someone coughed. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Reed stood slowly, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the center of the room like a man with a full hand of aces. We'd like to submit Exhibit A through G, he said calmly. Time-stamped digital evidence, account login records, IP logs, notarized medical evaluations, confirming full mental capacity, and surveillance footage documenting unauthorized access to the plaintiff's home and devices. He handed the folders to the clerk. Then he turned back to the judge. My client may walk with a cane, he said, but she doesn't need anyone to carry her decisions. Dot stood next. The room quieted the moment she did. I kept books for 30 years, she said. Voice clear. Every number on every page has to balance. And I balanced mine until the day they tried to erase me. She walked to the witness stand without help, sat, and read from her own ledger. Withdrawals she hadn't made, signatures she hadn't signed, passwords she hadn't shared, changed days before someone tried to access her accounts. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. They didn't treat me like family. They treated me like a fading opportunity. Then it was Maya's turn. She took the stand in a collared shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back, hands steady on her lap. Her voice was soft but surgical. She explained the encryption system she built, the footage she handed to the police, the moment she saw Tracy muttering to herself, rifling through drawers. She said, "We'll get her in a home soon, one way or another. I heard it. And I made sure someone else did too." The courtroom went silent. Tracy's lawyer stood ready to rebut, until the judge raised her hand. Are you done insulting this woman's intelligence? the judge asked coldly. Neither Tracy nor Scott replied. An hour later the gavel struck once, clean and final. The court finds in favor of Dorothy Winslow, the judge said. Evidence supports fraud, defamation, financial elder abuse, and unlawful misrepresentation. She looked directly at Tracy. You will pay restitution equal to all misappropriated funds, legal fees, and due to the court's discretion, a mandatory 100 hours of community service at a licensed elder care facility. Tracy's mouth fell open. The judge added, perhaps you'll learn the value of dignity while helping someone you can't exploit. Dot stood. Reed placed the judgment papers gently in her hand. The first morning Tracy reported for community service. The front doors of Golden Pines Assisted Living Center hissed open like a mouth, ready to swallow her whole. She wore scrubs a size too big and sneakers that squeaked on the polished floor. The clipboard she was handed listed her assignments in tidy print: dining hall prep, meal tray delivery, common room sanitation. Her eyes flicked up, and for a split second, she froze. Dot Winslow stood at the far end of the hallway, composed, smiling, holding a folder under one arm. Tracy stiffened, then looked away like the floor tiles suddenly held deep interest. Dot didn't move toward her. She turned instead into the activities room, where half a dozen residents sat in a semicircle, sipping weak coffee and thumbing crossword books. A staff member stepped to the front. Everyone, please welcome today's guest speaker, Miss Dorothy Winslow, who's here to talk about elder financial protection. A soft murmur moved through the group. A white-haired woman in the second row whispered, "Is that the one from the paper?" Another nodded. "The one with the walker. Except she doesn't need it anymore." Dot began to speak, her voice steady and low, each word deliberate. She told them what happened, carefully, without bitterness. Just facts, tactics, strategy, how joint accounts can become chains, how silence is a weapon used against the old, how dignity has to be documented, defended and declared on paper. No names, no vengeance, just truth. In the hallway beyond the open door, Tracy passed by, pushing a bin of plastic trays. Her jaw was tight, her gaze stayed forward, but she couldn't unhear the soft ripple of applause at the end of Dot's talk. Later that week, Maya stood at a podium of her own. It wasn't a courtroom. It wasn't a tech expo. It was Boise High's Youth Forum on Justice and Innovation, mostly mock trials and environmental pitches. But Maya's project hit different. Securing their legacy, elder fraud and the generation gap blinked across a projection screen behind her. She wore jeans, her hair pulled back in a braid, and she didn't read from a script. My grandmother wasn't confused, she told the room. She was surrounded by people who hoped she'd stay quiet. The room fell still. Even the teachers stopped checking their watches. I didn't protect her because she was weak. I protected her because she was strong enough to trust me. Back at Reed's office, 2 signatures finalized a scholarship trust that would bear Maya's name. The funds came from Dot's settlement restitution and her own redirected pension bonuses. It would help one student a year pursue law, elder advocacy, or community cybersecurity. You could have kept it for yourself, Reed said as she signed. Dot smiled faintly. There's nothing more powerful than leaving something they can't steal. He slid over one more file, and that officially locks your estate from any future access attempts, family or not. She placed her palm on the folder. Good. Then I can finally sleep. By early fall, Scott had moved. No forwarding address, no goodbye. He packed the truck himself, left the garage half empty, and drove west toward Oregon. No one waved. No one asked where he was going. Dot watched from the porch as the taillights disappeared down the long cracked street. She felt nothing. 1 week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. High-quality stock. Embossed gold lettering. Dot opened it in the kitchen, the air thick with the scent of rising dough and cooling rain. Inside was a single cream card. The Idaho Financial Justice Forum cordially invites Dorothy Winslow as keynote speaker for this year's conference on elder protection, fiduciary law reform, and financial dignity. Your voice started something. We'd like to help you carry it further. Dot sat down at the kitchen table, the invitation resting between her palms. Maya leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You're going to do it, right? Dot looked up, not just at Maya, at the future, and smiled. Dot stepped onto the stage with the soft echo of her cane tapping wood behind her, the same deliberate rhythm she'd walked with through every bank, courthouse, and firestorm they threw at her. The ballroom lights of the Idaho Financial Justice Forum were bright, but not blinding. The rows of folding chairs stretched wide, filled with people who wore everything from crisp suits to thrifted cardigans: elder advocates, lawmakers, financial educators, survivors, and many like her, quiet warriors with tired knees and unshakable wills. She adjusted the microphone. The title slide behind her. The walker was just a detour. A few people chuckled softly. She began. They thought I'd forgotten how to read a contract. They thought I'd forgotten how to read people. They were wrong on both counts. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. In the past year, I've been called confused, manipulated, mentally slipping. And yet here I am, not as a victim but as evidence. The room leaned in. She told them pieces. Not the whole courtroom battle, not the check amounts or forged signatures, just the choices, the strategy, the silent bravery it takes to hold your ground when no one expects you to. Dignity, she said, isn't something they take in one move. They take it in paperwork, in eye rolls, in passwords you didn't approve, and names they signed without asking. She looked out at the crowd. But you can take it back, one document at a time. By the time she finished, the room was silent. Then came the first clap, from an older woman in the third row with a cane just like Dot's. Then came the wave. A standing ovation, seniors rising one by one, staffers. A state senator. A woman in a wheelchair lifted her program in the air like a flag. Dot nodded once, quietly. The article ran 2 days later in the Boise Register. Page B1, full color. The woman who walked away with everything. A photo of Dot stood at the top, speaking from the stage, eyes focused, cane at her side like punctuation. Maya had saved a copy and clipped it to the fridge. You know, she said, setting her cereal bowl down, they're going to ask you to do more of this. Workshops, panels, maybe even curriculum. Dot raised an eyebrow. At my age, they want someone who actually knows what the hell they're talking about. A day later she received the offer. A paid consulting role with the Idaho Elder Protection Initiative, 3 sessions per month, designing preventative programs for financial institutions and care providers. Dot said yes, not because she needed the job, because they needed someone who understood the fight. The acceptance letters arrived in a pair of matching envelopes, one from the University of Washington, one from Oregon State. Maya stared at them in silence for a full minute. Dot waited, sipping her tea. When Maya finally looked up, there were tears threatening behind her glasses. UW, she said. They've got a full certification in elder law and digital rights. I want to go where I can build something better. Dot nodded once. You already are. Eileen stopped by that Friday with a peach cobbler and an armful of dog-eared legal pamphlets. You've become a damn folk hero, she said, half laughing as she dropped onto the couch. They're talking about using your story in advocacy training. Dot smiled as she sliced the cobbler. I didn't rewrite the law, Eileen. No, Eileen said, lifting a fork. But you rewrote your ending. And it's a hell of a book. That evening the garage needed sweeping. Maya had left a box of her high school notebooks near the back wall, and Dot bent carefully to move them. Her cane leaned against the workbench, the overhead bulb buzzing gently. That's when she saw it. Her old walker, still folded, still there, but now a post-it note was taped to the front bar. In Maya's handwriting, just 5 words. Sorry, you never needed it. Maya Dot stared at it for a long time. Then she reached out, gently peeled the note free, and tucked it into her pocket. The walker stayed exactly where it was. The sun had just started to rise when Dot carried the folded walker down her porch steps. She didn't use it. She carried it, one hand gripping the cold aluminum frame, the other holding a cardboard sign that fluttered gently in the breeze. She set it near the curb, beside the hedge she'd trimmed every spring for 30 years, and leaned it upright like it still had some dignity to stand on. The sign, written in thick black marker, read free, but never weak. Then she turned and started walking. No destination, no need for one. Just motion, just purpose. Maya caught up to her at the edge of the driveway, her sneakers scuffing gravel. Thought I'd missed you. Dot didn't look back. You're right on time. They walked in silence at first, the way people do when nothing needs explaining. The sidewalk still held last night's chill, and the leaves overhead were golden and rustling like applause. The cane in Dot's hand wasn't for balance, not anymore. It was punctuation, memory, armor with a handle. They passed the elementary school first, its swings empty, the flag still climbing slowly up the pole. Dot glanced over her shoulder, then back ahead. I used to wait on that bench, she said. When Scott was little. Maya didn't answer. She just walked closer. 2 blocks down, the bank came into view. It looked smaller than she remembered. Funny how things shrink when you've outgrown the fear inside them. Dot stopped at the corner. Cars rolled past in lazy Monday rhythms. The glass doors of the bank opened, and a young teller spotted her from inside. A pause, and then a smile. She waved. So did the manager behind the desk. Dot nodded back. Just once. They know, Maya said. Dot exhaled. Now they do. She stood there a second longer, letting the moment settle into her bones. The air smelled faintly of exhaust and early coffee. Then she turned, and they kept walking. 3 blocks later, they reached the small grocery store where Tracy used to send Dot for coupons and discount cereal. Because you're already out. Might as well grab a few things. Dot hadn't been inside since the fall. This time she opened the door herself. They walked the perimeter slowly. Maya grabbing a bottle of juice. Dot scanning the aisles. The cashier, a boy in his 20s with piercings and sleepy eyes, lit up as she approached. You're the woman from the paper, he said. I'm a lot of things, Dot replied. But yes, that too. She left without paying. Maya insisted on treating. The final stop was the hardest, not because of pain, but because of memory. Dot stood at the end of her own driveway and looked up at the house that had nearly been taken from her. The shutters were newly painted, the gutters cleaned, the bedroom light glowed warmly through the curtain. Nothing had changed, and everything had. You okay? Maya asked. Dot nodded, just remembering. She walked to the porch slowly, her cane tapping wood that used to echo differently, when it was fear, not strength. I kept the cane, she said, gripping the railing. Not because I need it, because it reminds me what I did. Maya leaned beside her. What you're still doing. They sat for a while on the porch swing, the kind that creaked when the breeze picked up. Across the street, someone pulled weeds. Down the block, a toddler shrieked with joy. Life kept moving. Dot smiled to herself. They thought I was slowing down, she murmured, watching the leaves drift down the sidewalk like gold confetti. Then she looked out across her street, her town, her life. I was just winding up.